So, everybody, what we're going to talk about today is the Black Sabbath record, Eternal Idol. This is one of my all-time favorite memories of being a kid. I had gotten a comic book when I was like 14, 15 that talked about the quote-unquote origins of Black Sabbath. The comic itself was a bit of a goof, but it was a fun collector's item. But at the back, it had a whole discography of Black Sabbath, including all the non-Ozzy releases. At the time, this was a pretty big deal. You didn't have a lot of these things out there. There wasn't a lot of the information on the IRS days, especially weird 80s albums, so this was huge. I was very excited. So, of course, as soon as I could, I went to the record store when I was old enough, and back then you got a book. And you had to go through the book and special order something. It wasn't like a pre-order, but you had to, if it wasn't in the store, they could have it specially delivered to the place. And then, you'd pick it up. That's how I got like 80% of my music. So I ordered this cassette. I was so excited. I had heard they also had a Black Sabbath video release. They didn't have the full songs, but they had videos for a lot of the 80s stuff. So they had a video clip of The Shining where, Tony Martin looked goofy, but it was the 80s. Everybody looked kind of goofy. But that was exciting. That main riff to The Shining got me hooked. And Tony sounded a lot like a smoother Dio, so I was like, damn, I'm going to like this. Getting into it. The album itself starts with a bang. The Shining is incredible. I love that song. It's got this huge turnaround riff, melodic parts. And the first thing you notice on the album is the production. The production is extremely good. And it's slicker than the old stuff. I mean, if you look at stuff like Born Again, even Mob Rules, Heaven and Hell, this is a lot much of a deeper, more elegant production, which sets this part of Sabbath aside from everything else. And actually, the production on Eternal Idol is different than any production that Sabbath had. It's just a beautiful, smooth, velvety, elegant sounding album. It bangs off with The Shining, which has a huge chorus, this monster riff, and then it moves into other songs like Ancient Warrior, which is a banger, just a great glimmering keyboard intro into a massive riff, Glory Ride, Hard Life to Love, Born to Lose. All of these are bangers. The one complaint that you could have about the record is every song kind of has the same structure. It starts with the Tony riff, the drums kick in, and then the vocals, and then so forth. But if you ignore that basic structural issue, the drumming, the sound, it's all epic. It's as epic as could be. I find the record stunning. The lead guitar playing also stands out because in a few small places you hear Tony do shredding. Maybe not like shred, but it's as close as we've ever heard Tony get to that modern style of playing. And that sets aside. With the production, these huge riffs really stand out. Hard Life to Love is a monster. And then the title track, which it's organized like Black Sabbath, the song, but not the same. It's got a huge riff, and at the end it goes to a huge vocal crescendo, but it doesn't get faster. That is one of the best pieces of Doom. The album cover, too. It's an ancient statue. I think the statue is called the Eternal Idol, and it's just a beautiful presentation. It's a little wonky that the only guy who gets credit in the booklet is Tony, but I guess with all the politics and the record label issues and people coming in and out, they just dropped him on it, because I know that Jeff Nichols had a hand in writing it too, and Bob Daisley was some of the lyrics, who also most famously worked for Ozzy. I think The Eternal Idol is one of the most overlooked albums in the Sabbath catalog, but it's one of the best. I think everybody in the world should run out and get a copy because it's one of those unique albums that really doesn't define a band, but stands so well on its own that it requires multiple listens to really digest. You could debate putting the Sabbath name on it, but I think it works just fine. Tony Martin sounds the best he ever did. I mean, I like him on other material. I've always been a huge fan, but this record, he belts like it's an amazing voice that he shows up with. And It's one of those records that has been lost to time except for the hardcore fans, and especially with Ozzy's comeback and 13 being kind of a tribute record to their past rather than a trailblazer. This is one of those things that a lot of fans should look into, especially people who really like Tony's playing outside of the Sabbath riff 1-2 ethos that they had earlier on. This is really a Tony Iommi showcase, and it showcases him to be absolutely brilliant. So I'm going to put a link to the record in the description and some videos regarding the record. So check this one out. I really think you'll enjoy it. It's one of my favorite albums from my youth, and I brought it up recently, and I was like, everybody else should hear this too. It's that good. So this is Aerikvon saying thanks for listening, and check you next time.